On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1964. We're going to be taking a look at Jim Reeves, and he's going to be performing I Love You Because. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, a relatively short performance video for tonight. It's about 3 minutes in length, so we'll watch it the whole way through and then get into the analysis after. I have isolated Jim's vocal, so you'll be able to see that on the right hand side of the screen on the pitch monitoring software, but the guys are up on screen, so let's see how they get on.
I love you because you understand it. Every single thing I try to do, you're always there to lend a helping hand, dear. I love you most of all because you're you. No matter what may be the style or season, I know your love will always see me through. I love you for 100,000 reasons. I love you most of all because you're you. I love you because my heart is lighter every time you're walking by my side. I love you because the future's brighter. The door to happiness you've opened wide. No matter what may be the style or season, I know your love will always see me through. I love you for 100,000 reasons, but I love you most of all because you're you.
And there we have it. So, the unique thing about this performance, but just the overall sound that you got from Jim's voice, was the body in his tone, and this is because of the range that he's singing in. A lot of singers, and having this kind of country sound, but having this range that he's singing in makes it sound so different to other country songs. And obviously this is a slower tempo, more of a kind of ballad sound to it. And when we're talking about Jim's sound overall, he was one of those people that really brought into fashion the Nashville sound, the way of making country music more, I guess, appealing to the mainstream, because they start to add more production into the sound, and sometimes having strings and all of these things that you'd normally just have a fiddle. You wouldn't have like a full orchestra behind the sound on the records that were released, but they started to take things in that direction. And yeah, this is unique because you've got that kind of sound, not in this particular live performance, but it is a great live performance instrumentally. When you're listening in for the subtlety with that guitar, the arpeggios that are being played, we've got Jim here that's just, you know, strumming out a few chords on the guitar. So again, having that ability to play, sing at the same time. But the piano in the background, have a listen to that, because it's quite low in the mix, but there is so much going on. Just great runs, you know, sometimes spanning, you know, a couple of octaves, a few octaves on the piano. So top level playing here from a technical standpoint, but also dynamically in the way that they place it in just exactly the right spot. And Jim's vocal is already quite high in the mix. We will listen to it isolated in a minute, but you get to appreciate the body in Jim's vocal, his tone. And we are going to get up on screen the piano, so we've got a reference point for the range and the notes that Jim's hitting here, because when we go all the way back to the beginning, I will just let it play through. I'll take the accompaniment down as well so we can listen to Jim's voice.
I love you because you understand me.
So actually,
Every single thing I try to do.
you can see how we're now in this area, and when we're looking at these lines on the screen, which is just Jim's voice plotted over a pitch graph, when we take it back, we actually start on the F2. This is way down there.
I love you.
And his tone is just consistent. He's got that natural range to get down that far. When I'm talking about an F2, when we look over at the piano, the bottom end of the bass range is E2. So the F2 is just one note, a semitone higher than that. So he's right, like I said, it's a low note. He's right down there, the bottom end of the bass range. But then as we progress and we get into the main body of the verse, you'll see how we're in and around our, D3 and, F3. Let me just mention the F3. That means that we've already spanned an octave. I don't know whether you'll be able to take it in because it is so even, it is so smooth, but just listen to the pitches.
I love you because...
So already there, we've got that difference of an octave, but you're not going to notice it because of the quality of the vocal.
Because you understand me. Every single thing I try to do.
And you'll notice how we've got this sliding from one note to the next, the glissando that I've mentioned in lots of other videos, that gives it more of a relaxed sound. It's less regimented. When you start blending notes together, going from your start point to your destination, but sliding there, rather than having just a cut-off between the notes, you've got a lot of the crooners, as they were described as, using this technique. This is what they did. It gives it that relaxed sound. And when you're talking about country music, this is what Jim had in his voice. It was this crooner quality to it, but it was still over the top of country music, or at least chords that were country in nature and had the same rhythmic appeal and the same rhythmic identity when we're talking about the chords. So just to explain quickly what I mean about this identity, when you're listening to country music, you often get the running bass line that's not only happening on the bass but the guitar as well. What I mean by that is, in this case, we've got the F, and you can hear how that low note is changing, and then we go to the B flat, same thing, F again, then over to the C, G, kind of like that. So you've got this constant bounce between these notes, that running bass line, and it's the kind of thing that you'll see in kind of fingerstyle, that going the root note of the chord, like that, and you get that bounce. But then when you throw in you can start to hear that it's having a bass line and the chords happening at the same time when you're playing it fingerstyle, but even just bouncing between the root note of the chord and then the body of the chord, it gives it this sound. But I mean, the killer here is that we've got this country sound really nicely played, but we've got this voice that doesn't normally go with country music. So it is such a unique sound, but it's a great sound. I mean, nobody's going to argue that this just goes so well together because of Jim's vocal ability, not trying to force his voice to do anything that is unnatural or outside his range. It's just reminded me about something that I read. I think it was Chet Atkins who said about Jim's voice that Jim wanted to be a tenor, but Chet made him sing as a baritone. And, you know, I think Chet was just saying that I was right because of how successful Jim was. And just talking about his success, because, I mean, over in the USA, of course, hugely popular, but this crossover appeal that Jim had because of these blends of sounds that we're getting with his voice, and then the backing and the songs that he sang, he was hugely popular over here in the UK, and especially in Ireland and Norway. I mean, just across Europe, which for a country artist, and I say that because it's such a blend of sound known as that Nashville sound, it's rare that we have any kind of country artists or music that are really successful. But looking into it, Jim was huge, and he just had this universal appeal where he was one of those artists that, yeah, the songs would be released and would be classed as country music genre-wise, but they would cross over into the mainstream charts and be hits in those charts as well. But anyway, getting back into Jim's voice, because, I mean, he's got great pitch accuracy, of course. You'll notice his vibrato is consistent throughout. I don't think we're really ever hearing a long note being held, or even, you know, not that long a note, but just a note being held without vibrato. Let's have a listen.
You're always there to lend a helping hand, dear.
See, look at all of these wobbles of vibrato that we get, always really consistent. But again, you know, he is slightly ascending with the vibrato, but it's always there. Even on that F2 right down at the bottom, he starts straight and then just adds in a little bit before he finishes.
You're always...
You hear that? I mean, it's going to be really low for me, going, ah. You know, I can hardly hit that because my voice is a lot higher than Jim's. But even with that, I'm not even sure. Yeah, I can kind of control it a bit, but that's not a note that I use when I'm singing. I would have to train to get my voice, or train more to get my voice that low. You know, going up an octave. You know, for me, it isn't that much of a problem. So you can see how our voices are an octave apart. That's how low Jim is singing. But it's a great sound because he's got the body in there. It doesn't sound like me trying to do it. It's a great advert for just singing how you sing. And whatever, you know, range your voice has, just use it. Especially when we're talking about these kinds of voices. When I talk about Jim, but also just generally people that sing lower than normal, it always seems to be the case that people want to sing high notes. But Jim's a great example of, if you can sing low notes really well, just sing those low notes because they'll sound great, because it's what your voice was designed to do. Same thing with Karen Carpenter, you know, to give a female example of this kind of thing. You know, she always said that the money's in the basement when referring to her voice, that her low notes is where she sounded great and where the money was, where the songs were sung that sold the most for her as a singer, as an artist. But just the Carpenters in general, that was their sound. The ability that she had to take her voice down into that contralto range, which it will be for females. So again, whether you're a male singer, a female singer, just sing the notes that a part of your voice. And obviously you can train your voice to sing higher and lower, but just start out where your voice naturally sits. But we will listen on. Because I've isolated the vocal, it just gives it something else, something unique that we can really dive into his voice in real detail.
There to lend a helping hand, dear. I love you most of all because you're you. No matter what may be the style or season, I know your love will always see me through.
It's also this relaxed sound. I mean, it's interesting to listen to when it's isolated because you get how relaxed his vocal is. You know, he's not really leaning into chest voice here and belting or doing anything of the sort. He's just giving you this really thick tone. The reason it's interesting is because how thick the tone is, but how easily it's being produced. So because of that ease and, you know, our perception of the ease with which it's being produced, it gives it that conversational quality because it's easy. It's like talking, but just on pitch, but with such a thick and engaging tone.
I love you for 100,000 reasons.
I mean, all of these slides, even their reasons, he kind of starts actually on the D3, reasons, and then goes up to the F3. So yeah, just perfectly blending all of these notes together, and it just sounds great.
I love you most of all because you're you. I love you because my heart is lighter.
I'm just going to jump in because, I mean, the subtlety in the guitar playing and the piano in that tiny instrumental break that we just had, I mean, it's great because of the way that he's playing, but just intentionally dragging that pick across the strings for the chords, which means you're going to get the sound of each note of the chord rather than just doing one downstroke and hitting the strings so quickly. You just get that chunk of noise. By dragging it across the strings, you get that arpeggio, the notes of the chord, which just make it obviously sound so much more deliberate, and it's going to make it stand out more. So we'll just have a listen to that again, actually. Listen out for the piano as well. I mean, that is just crazy good. I mean, you might not be able to appreciate it, but the piano, just listen to that. What did I say? It's maybe 3 octaves arpeggio. It's hard to listen. It sounds like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 octaves just running up the piano all the way down again, but it's being played dynamically. It's not that the pianist is playing and just hitting all the notes at the same volume and with the same impact level on the keys. The run has personality in it. It's not just a bland run that's like listening to a computer. He's just getting the top end of the run just to stick out a little bit more, coming back down again. So yeah, just top level playing going on here, and this just was the case in the 60s. They got great musicians, especially, you know, country musicians. I mean, they were the kind of best of the best, technique-wise, and just with this kind of thing, just dynamic appreciation. But this is such an understated performance that this will fly under your radar, all of the levels that we're hitting instrumentally, but then just because the vocal's so relaxed and so well executed, so nice to listen to, it allows everything to just sit in there unnoticed, but then when you listen in for it, it's just absolutely crazy.
Love you because my heart is lighter.
Interestingly, when he does go a bit higher, he gets a little bit more nasal with his sound. And then you can hear a little bit more of that depth, as he goes down in range. But it's still all sounding great, by the way, up to the A3 there. And we started on the F2, so the F3 here is an octave higher, so we're going beyond an octave range. I mean, not that you really notice, but just to let you know.
Every time you're walking by my side, I love you because the future's brighter. The door to happiness you've opened wide. No matter what may be the style or season, I know your love will always see me through.
Oh, I mean, that was great. Just on the ooh. I'm going to listen to that again. I mean, tiny details. This is the thing when you're listening to a great voice, you just want to listen to it. And even without the instrumentation, it still sounds great. And to relate this to, playing the guitar, playing any instrument where you have the ability or the option to use effects, you always want your guitar playing to sound good by itself before using any effects. And this is what we get with great vocalists. Their voice is good enough on its own. It doesn't need the instrumentation because it sounds great. When you're listening to a great singer, you don't need the key because the singer's so accurate pitch-wise. You already know the key because of the intervals and what the singer is doing with the notes that they're hitting. But just listen to this ooh again.
Love will always see me through.
And it's that balance of air having through. And he actually kind of he kind of leans in a tiny bit, and then at the top he lightens off, but then gives you that vibrato.
I love you.
And then bang in with that F2 again.
For 100,000 reasons. But I love you most of all because you're you.
Again there. Most of all, most of all. So he's not going most of all and going straight down and being regimented, that I said right at the beginning of this video. Is that starting on the note you're singing before actually singing the next note. Na na na, and going down like that. Really subtle detail, but it's great because he does this throughout the performance. It just makes it sound so easy to listen to, but makes it sound so easy.
Because you're you.
And a little bit stricter at the end there. Because you're you. There are tiny slides in there, but let's go back.
But I love you most of all.
I mean, it's so subtle. Let's listen to it in slow motion. I know I'm kind of getting into real detail here, but
Most of all.
there you go. Most of all. It's almost like the vocal doesn't have sharp edges. It's sliding. It's like you can't hurt yourself by touching this voice. Whereas sometimes you get singers who are very abrupt with their singing and might go na 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 na, and they're just hitting notes. And it's almost like a sharp vocal. It's got sharp edges to the vocal. This is smooth all the way through, and that's what it's like to listen to. It's like silky smooth to listen to on your ears. Sadly, I mean, Jim's story is a sad one because he's another artist who died in a plane crash, and it was Jim actually who was flying the plane and got caught up in some bad weather, torrential rain, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't read too much into it, but yeah, sadly, I think he lost his bearings on where he was because this weather front was so extreme. Actually, this performance was 1964, at least that's what it's labelled as, and that is the year of Jim's death. I think this was released in 1963, the song. So, yeah, this would have been one of his last performances, sadly. And, yeah, at the age of 40... I mean, taken very young, and he only really became a household name at age 30, maybe a little bit later than that. But thank you guys for requesting this particular video for me to take a look at. Keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. As always, let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!